And this is Senate Health and Human Services Committee. Let's bring it to order, and Chairman Eccles, if you don't mind, opening us up in prayer.
I'm happy to. Let us pray. Dear Heavenly Father, thank you for today. Lord, thank you for allowing us to be here and to do the work for you and for the people of Georgia. God, I pray that you'll give us all clear minds and allow us to hear the things that we need to be doing and to seek your guidance in making those important decisions. In your name I pray. Amen.
Thank you, Chairman. We have one bill on the agenda today, and that's Senate Bill 198, Senator Harrell, to create Georgia with Intellectual Developmental Disabilities Innovation Commission. And having said that, the floor is yours. You can come down. You want to do Mike right there in the middle. Floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. I'm very pleased to be here today to present Senate Bill 198. This is co-authored. My co-sponsor of this bill is Senator John Albers. Senator Albers and I had a study committee, you remember that well, in 2022 on this issue of services for people with intellectual and developmental disabilities. We're talking adults who were already through the school system. The reason we had the study committee is because the Senate showed interest in increasing the number of waivers that were funded for home and community-based services to address the waiting list of, like 7,000 families. Different situations, you can calculate that number different ways, but there was a large waiting list, and always has been, for at least a couple decades, of people waiting for these home and community-based services. But once we started to increase those number of waivers, we quickly found out that we had a problem. And that problem was that the infrastructure of services to serve these people in their communities, which we must do by federal law, was in ruin and in crisis. And we didn't want to remove one waiting list and by doing that create another waiting list for services. So we realized that the issue needed some pretty deep study. So Senator Albers and I co-chaired a study committee together, and we had 5 meetings, and these meetings were held at various locations across the state, and they were long hearings. They were extremely well attended in every community we went in because people need help. One of my constituents said that the cost of caring for their loved ones in the community is similar to the cost of tuition, college tuition. And we all save for that, so we can pay that for 4 years. These families are facing this kind of cost every year for the rest of their loved ones' lives. So after we heard all this testimony, and based on the research we looked at and the testimony, the committee found the need to create a commission on intellectual and developmental disabilities innovation commission, which is what this bill is. The commission is created in the same style as the Mental Health Innovation Commission that we've had for about 5 years. It's been highly successful in bringing together all of the interested parties and experts who understand the system of mental health across Georgia. We're modeling that kind of approach, only our issue is people with intellectual and developmental disabilities. The committee will consist of 22 members coming from various expertise that are outlined in the bill. 6 are appointed by the governor, including the chairperson of the committee. 8 are appointed by the lieutenant governor, and 8 by the Speaker of the House. And members will serve 2-year terms. There will be 5 committees that were created based on the needs that we saw when we did these hearings. For instance, one of the committees will specifically focus on supportive employment, because many of these people, depending on their level of disabilities, they are able to work in their communities. And people who are able to work and provide for their own needs are happier people. And sometimes they might just need one kind of support versus another to help them stay in those jobs. So one of the committees will focus on supportive employment. And there are 4 other committees. For instance, one of the other committees has to do with workforce, because what we found is these direct service providers, these are the people who take care of the people with intellectual and developmental disabilities. And we found that they were only getting about $11 an hour. And so, and it's hard work. And it takes a certain skill and talent. And so we knew that wage needed to come up so that we could have more people available for those jobs and pay them better. And we've done some work since then. We had another bill that I passed, Senate Bill 610, I think it was, that requires the state to conduct rate studies every 4 years, because it had been since 2015 since we had done a rate study. And these are Medicaid reimbursement. So in order to draw down more federal dollars, we needed approval from CMA. So we have a committee that works on that, and 3 other committees as well that are on page 7 of the bill, line 64 through 167, if you want to take a look. I might add that the Commissioner of the Department of Behavioral Health and Developmental Disabilities, former Representative Kevin Tanner, was involved in reviewing this bill and tweaking this bill, so he has seen it. And I might add, Mr. Chairman, that we might want to consider, there is a sunset for the bill. And when we wrote the bill, we were thinking that if we could really take a detailed look at this issue for about 5 years, that would give us enough time to bring the experts together, fix the problems, implement the solutions, and see some results. So since this bill was filed last year, and we were thinking 5 years. It does say, Mr. Chairman, that it will end June 30th, 2028. I would love to respectfully ask the committee to consider changing that to 2029 so that we can stick with the 5 years that we intended when we dropped the bill. So that is the bill, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator Harrell. So we have about 5 people that have signed up. 3 are in favor. I suspect the other 2 are in favor also. If we could have them come to the podium. We have Ryan Whitmire, Ellen Yeager, thank you, Charlie Miller. Those are in the queue. Hey, Charlie. And Tracy Bryant and John Zoller. Happy to hear from you. Ryan Whitmire? Yeah. Just appreciate that. If we can just keep it as brief as possible. We all have meetings to go to. It's sort of busy time of year, so thank you.
Definitely do that. My name's Ryan Whitmire. I am the current president of SPAD, the Service Provider Association for Developmental Disabilities. I'm also the CEO and president of a service provider organization in Georgia, Developmental Disability Ministries. I just want to thank you so much for hearing the bill and taking public comment. I do want everyone to know that SPAD is in full support of the bill. We think it's going to be a great commission that can, honestly, what Senator Harrell stated, can do what the Mental Health Commission did for mental health. And there's a lot of things that are really specific to DD, and this bill will help us in order to be innovative and problem solve to those issues. So again, just thank you so much. And we do appreciate everything that you've done. And then the commissioner as well, Commissioner Tanner, has been excellent supporting us. And so look forward to it, and hopefully it will pass.
Appreciate that. Ellen Yeager? I'd missed before that the association or title was president of SPAD, which he said, but I love your title as grandmother.
Yeah, I think that
that's
is the
near and
most
dear
important.
to all our hearts. Thank you.
Most important title. And I've had the opportunity to speak to some of you before, representing mental health, but this is so personal for me. I have a granddaughter who I adore and is just this beautiful young woman who just turned 19. However, she faces an incredibly complicated future. She has Prader-Willi, which many of you have probably never heard of. It's a very, very rare disorder. And as if that were not enough, she also has autism. So her future, from her parents' perspective, has to be one of possibility, has to be one of opportunity. And as her grandmother, I'm going to support every bit of that. What this commission does is give families, legislators, professionals an opportunity to see where are the gaps and to see how can you make sure that everybody has the best quality of life possible, regardless of a diagnosis or no diagnosis. So I can't imagine anybody not supporting the work of the commission. I can't imagine anyone not wanting the best for every family member or every citizen. So I thank you for bringing this forward. Please pass it. It is the beginning of some very good work. As a grandmother, thanks.
Thank you, Ms. Yeager. Charlie, do you want to? Yeah, that'd be great. Just can get you in the middle there.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And before I start my remarks, I've been practicing all summer to make sure I get very quick on my remarks because I remember last year you were making sure I was very quick, so I appreciate your help, honestly. Mr. Chairman, and say again? Can you teach your dad? I can't teach that man anything, y'all. I can barely keep up with him, honestly. Mr. Chairman, members of this committee, thank you all so much for hearing this bill. My name is Charlie Miller. I am the Legislative Advocacy Director here at the Georgia Council on Developmental Disabilities. This bill is a really good bill. This bill can really help people with disabilities make sure that we are living in the community and having the right supports and services. Currently, as other people have already said, that Georgia has been under a U.S. settlement agreement with DOJ. This will help us get out from under that. But y'all, most importantly, this is speaking to the whole person of a disability, of a person with a disability. It's not just vocational rehab. It's not just making sure services are right, but making sure that we're thinking about the whole person as a disability community. So I don't want to go in too deep in it. This bill is a really good bill. It really will make a big difference in the disability community. I hope that was quick enough, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Miller, your dad should take lessons from you. Thank you. Did a great job. Thank you for representing GCDD, and we appreciate your thoughts.
Thank you, sir.
Tracy Bryant, and then John Zoller.
Good afternoon, and thank you, Mr. Chairman and committee, for this opportunity for me to speak with you. My wife, Beth, and I have raised 4 children near Atlanta, and our youngest, Daniel, is a Georgian with developmental disabilities. It is because Daniel and the thousands of other Georgians with developmental disabilities that I am here today to ask you for your support for Senate Bill 198. I am also here to advocate on behalf of Unlock Georgia, a broad-based coalition whose mission it is to expand and enhance home and community-based services to fully support Georgians with intellectual and developmental disabilities. Every parent, special needs or not, experiences the same joy and pride watching their child develop into their future self. We have all put forth, whenever necessary, everything that was necessary for our children's future. But for Georgia's special needs families, everything we have may not be enough. There are human limitations. And we need a bigger conversation, a broader conversation on mechanisms of support and solutions. During the IDD Senate Study Committee hearings in 2022, advocates raised their voices across the state on their concerns for services for people with developmental disabilities. One of the final recommendations that came out of the IDD Senate Study Committee was the formation of a commission, an IDD commission, to continue the discussion on the critical needs of this community. Initiating an IDD commission, will provide a structured and thoughtful approach to state leaders and stakeholders to proactively plan for the long-term needs of people with developmental disabilities in our state. An IDD commission would build a platform to discuss a more holistic approach to supporting people with IDD and address issues such as Medicaid waivers, employment, housing, and health care. It would improve our understanding of what is needed to support the whole individual to succeed in their community. Lastly, an IDD commission would help to break the societal stigma that still exists for people with developmental disabilities and would contribute to a more compassionate and empathetic Georgia. Sadly, there are misconceptions about what people with developmental disabilities are capable of, and we need to change that. Thankfully, our son Dan received the waiver last October, and his life has changed immeasurably. He has been able to continue employment. He is actively engaged in his community. And our lives have changed immeasurably too. Before the waiver, there was worry and fear of Dan's future. Today, Beth and I are beginning to experience hope, relief, and joy that Dan can reach his potential. Please support Senate Bill 198 and help all Georgians with developmental disabilities reach their full potential. Thank you very much.
We have questions in our
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for your testimony. How long were you all waiting for a waiver?
It was over 10 years.
10 years.
Over 10 years.
More than 10 years. So I know that I can only imagine the relief to.
Yeah. It's visible on my son's face that he's achieved independent living and he's his own man. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And you would know as a parent what satisfaction that gives you.
Yeah, it really cries out for us to continue tackling that, reducing that waiting list.
Thank you.
Thank you
very much.
Thank you for your testimony. Any other no questions? Go ahead. You have the podium.
Last name is Zoller. I'm used to going last. Also an ex-state and county employee. So let me just say ditto with what you've heard from a lot of folks here already. The one thing I do want to emphasize is that, and excuse me, I'm John Zoller. I'm the father of a 37-year-old developmentally disabled child, Katie, who is also an adult. I call her a child because she functions on a 3 to 5-year-old level. I'm fully in support of this commission being formed under the model of the Behavioral Health Commission, because I looked at some YouTubes of that in action, and it's really doing some exciting stuff. They're talking about innovative and best practices approach. That's what we need for this group of individuals as well, as opposed to just doing the same thing over and over and over. Health, employment, housing, social relations, et cetera, et cetera. There are a myriad of different areas that can be improved upon, and there's ways of doing this out there. We just don't know what they are necessarily, nor are we funding them. And that's what I'd like to end with. I'm asking for your support for this bill. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Zoller. And prior to that was Tracy Bryan. I'm not sure we got your name, but I had called it out. And Charlie represents, I used an acronym, Georgia Council on Developmental Disabilities, right? Right, Charlie? Is Charlie still here? He's out. Okay, but I hate using acronyms and not identifying them. So we may pretend that we know them all, but it's certainly a challenge. Do I have any other questions? Or Senator Harrell, you want to come back up and wrap this up and see if we have any questions from the committee? The floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, committee members, for hearing this testimony. For me, the most difficult phone calls that I get from constituents are older parents who have been, exactly what your testimony was, older parents who know that they're not going to be around forever, and they've been on the waiting list for so long. We need to do this work so that we don't have more of those people in that situation. And there's just some really, this is we don't just send these people to an institution anymore. We used to. But the U.S. Supreme Court told us that that wasn't in compliance with the ADA. And so over the last couple of decades, we've created this, this network of services in the private market, and it's small businesses, and it's people just figuring out how to do this, and there's nobody in charge of it. What this commission will do is be able to bring those people who work in this area together, each bringing their expertise. Each of the 22 members comes from a different perspective with a different expertise. We'll organize that expertise into these working committees, and we will brainstorm together. We will use innovative techniques. We'll use technology. We'll increase efficiencies. And we can do this in a way through the commission that you can't do if you're just like a government bureaucrat, because you have the perspective from the hands-on services and in the community. So I think this will help our DBHCD. Our commissioner is doing such an incredible job. I think this will help him be able to do his job even better.
Any questions from the committee? Senator Setzler, 5.
Senator Harrell, appreciate your work on this, and this is not your first action in this area. I appreciate your work last year. Those who may not know, Senator Harrell was very instrumental in helping bring in the extra waivers in our budget last year, so appreciate you helping lead that. There's people that I've encountered in my district who specifically impacted by that, and it's having the kind of impact that the gentleman referred to here. So it's just very briefly, Mr. Chairman, I don't know that I will be on this commission, don't know that I would be selected for it, but I do want to share 3 things. Home care, I want, to the point of the community-based services, I want to have assurances that as we think about it, as we innovate, find ways that the level of surety in home-based services are the same as they would be in a more intensive setting. The responsibility for the provider of the intensive setting is absolute. When you get further out in terms of there's not full-time supervision and those kinds of things. The provision of services can be spotty, and there's not an absolute responsibility. I think that I've seen people had constituents that have had service not provided to them, and because they weren't in a more controlled residential setting, the provider couldn't find people to service them, but there was really no response from the state. It was just like, sorry, you don't get service today. So I would just charge you to think about that. Right. Secondly, supportive employment. Thank you for that. I would love to find ways in this setting and even in other disability settings outside of the DD population, but to have ways that folks can become employed and not have perverse incentives to not take gainful employment if they can get it because they lose services. Right. And lastly, Mr. Chairman, the idea of self-directed care, there are a number of families that can arrange providers and arrange and organize this themselves, but there's a lot of barriers to entry to organized groups of families and others to kind of be their own provider, as it were, by buying services a la carte to provide the range of care. There's a lot of difficulty even with very capable families, in being able to do that. I hope this would break down those barriers, so that's more of a reality for folks who would care to do it.
I think you've just made the case for the commission because those are exactly the kinds of issues that came up in the hearings and the testimony, and that's why we divided these committees into these categories which address exactly those things.
Thank you so much. I think now is the appropriate time.
I would make a motion to pass for LC 540202, and thank you for bringing this.
You're welcome.
Second from the trio at the end down there, okay. Yes, so we have do pass, seconded. We'll say Senator Butler, Chair Lady Butler, Minority Leader Butler. And we have discussion. We have Senator Setzler.
I'd like to be recognized for an amendment to address the issue raised by the lady of to change 2028 and make it 2029.
All right, so noted as amendment to change the date,
Second.
as noted, seconded. So we're going to vote on the amendment, unless there's further discussion. Vote on the amendment to push it back 1 year. And all those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, like sign. Unanimous. And so we have any further discussion? No further discussion. So we're going to, this is on the floor, Senate Bill 198, LC 540202, as amended. No? Okay, hold on. As amended. So I stand corrected. It will be a new LC number because it will be amended. That certainly makes sense. Okay, so as amended here, is that correct? Amended Senate Bill 198. How's that? Okay. We're all clear on that? We're voting on the bill with the date changed. How about that? No, I'm not. We appreciate it. I know it. Goodness gracious, I've never done this before. Thank you so much. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, like sign. Passes unanimously. Meeting is adjourned.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.